welcome to the very first episode of, what was the title going to be? Are You Afraid of the Citizens? Yes, that was it. Because I always have to work the Celluloid Citizen's name into the thing we're covering. Hence, why the other side show is Dark Side Citizens when we cover Tales from the Dark Side. But anyway, I'm Sean Thompson.
And I'm Tiffany Morris.
And yeah, I had debated waiting until we were done with Tales from the Dark Side, but obviously that's not going to be for quite a while if we do end up covering every episode.
Even the first season, I feel like it's just going to take a very long time.
It's like 20 episodes at least, so I think that's till the end of the year. But we had talked about doing Are You Afraid of the Dark? Because we both like it, and you're Canadian, so it's required by law that you watched it as a child.
Yes.
But I figured it might be fun to do at least the pilot for Halloween, and then maybe intermittently every once in a while cover an episode. But yeah, so we covered the pilot, directed by Ron Oliver, written by DJ McHale and Ned Candle, who chose to remain uncredited.
Oh, but the truth is out now.
Yes. Well, it's on IMDb, so I mean...
Nothing's staying
secret. There are a lot of people in this episode, surprisingly. Okay, Jason Tremblay is Denny Crocker. Sean Vertigo, that can't be his real name, is Buzz Crocker. Brian Dooley played Flynn the cab driver. Aaron Tager, Dr. Vink. And then going through the Midnight Society itself, Jason Alisharan for Frank. Rachel Blanchard for Kristen, Ross Hull for Gary, Nathaniel Moreau for David, Rain Pear Cool for Betty Ann, and that's all I have in front of me. So, and there are other people, of course.
And the rest.
And the rest, yes. As far as pilots go, it's fine. I don't know.
It's not their best. I've seen, I think, almost every episode.
I don't think they really hit their stride until they got to, like, I want to say Laughing in the Dark is episode 2.
Yeah, Laughing in the Dark is good.
Yeah, that's like my favorite one, because that one legitimately fucked me up as a kid.
Yeah, should have just started with that. It's got a scary
We
cloud.
should have, but it wasn't the pilot, so.
Yeah, gotta go sequential.
Yeah, very 90s, obviously. This was made in 1992, or at least aired in August of 1992. It is, of course, it's a anthology-style show. You got your Midnight Society, which is a bunch of preteens, I think. They look to be between like 12 and 15, who go to the woods at midnight and have a fire and tell spooky stories, and apparently their parents don't care about that.
I didn't realize until this episode that they don't know each other at school. They all come from different schools.
Yeah, so I'm like, where are you doing this? Like, how far out do you have to go if you're from different schools?
The deep, dark woods of Toronto.
Seriously. Before we go into it, I did try to watch one of the new Are You Afraid of the Darks, which was some carnival thing. It was okay. I don't know. It obviously wasn't the same. It was like way polished, and the actors were like okay, so I was like, this isn't Are You Afraid of the Dark? You need some kid who's never acted in his life going, oh wow!
And the brutal Canadian accents are really great. I think
that's another thing. I don't know that the new ones are Canadian. I think they're American.
Need Canadian production values, but specifically like 90s Canadian production values. It's just like a dead giveaway.
I think the funniest part to me was like when I was a child, since it was on Nickelodeon in the States, I didn't think about it. I was just like, oh, they're American because it's on Nickelodeon. And then when I went back as an adult, it was like, wait a minute, everybody's playing hockey. And like, everyone says sorry, like sorry. And everyone says sorry a lot. No.
It's very obviously Canadian.
Yeah, Canadian. It was just like, in retrospect, I'm like, oh, these are all Canadians. Okay.
American exceptionalism, but about TV.
But I do wonder if that's why, like, the show is more interesting to me, because, like, I don't know, maybe Canadian parents were a little chiller about, like, just weird shit.
I mean, I think that's probably true in general. Like, not that Canadians are necessarily immune to social panics, but there's just fewer of us here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
any social panic's not going to be as widespread anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling you off air, this couldn't get made now, and I don't mean in a, like, it's necessarily too subversive way. I just mean literally, like, there's, like, so much stranger danger with adults in this episode that,
Yes.
like, I don't think anyone in their right mind would clear this now.
Yeah.
I don't
And
even think they'd clear the friggin' Midnight Society. Like, they have it in the new miniseries, but they are all from the same school, and they sort of establish it's not that far from everyone's house. This is just some random point in the woods at midnight.
I mean, they're called the Midnight Society. I was always wondering how they managed to get out of their houses each time without getting caught, or if they were just like allowed. And like,
I mean,
what
there's a
parents?
lot that isn't. Maybe the parents are in on it and they just sort of drive everybody, and then they're just like just out of sight.
Aw,
But I don't think so, because there's definitely episodes where people are like biking in and stuff.
for sure. And it's like secret too, right? Because they have Frank blindfolded in this episode. So
Yeah, they always blindfold everybody. It's like Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, it's not like
it's
that bad,
exactly like that.
but it's like you got. I never understood the blindfolding too much, because it's like he must know who some of these people are.
Yeah, and it's the fucking woods at night. Like, do you really know it that?
Yeah, like did they walk a mile in with him in a blindfold? That must have been a pain.
Yeah, like I don't know. You don't even really see them with their flashlights.
No, but I mean it's suspension of disbelief and
Yes,
all
of
that.
course. Me and my friends,
Um,
when I was in grade 5, we were like, let's start a midnight society. Only we're going to meet at noon in the woods to tell scary.
the Noon Society.
Yeah, it was great.
That makes more sense. I can understand parents being much more okay with. I guess I don't know. Is the implication that like their parents don't know
Well, see,
that they just like sneak out of the house or something?
that's what I always assumed, but that's because I have I had very strict parents. So it's like I would have had to for sure.
Can you imagine those conversations when they get caught? Like, you're sneaking out at all hours of the night. Where are you going? And like, I'm just telling stories in the woods with my friends.
Like,
and
bullshit.
Like, yeah, sure. Of
You were
course,
getting drunk or high.
You're doing crank. But okay, Tale of the Phantom Cab. I mean, basically, this is the pilot. We're introduced to Frank, who has to tell a story, and if everyone likes the story, he gets in. I will say, hopping around. Not my favorite story. I don't know if I would have let him in with this one.
It was a little disjointed. I don't know.
It's a little disjointed. The funniest part of the show to me is picturing the kids telling the stories and how they would tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, Frank is very animated, so what would he just be like? Oh, there was this dude with his, like, cab. Like, I don't know. He's a child, so, like...
Yeah. He does have some pretty good stories throughout the series, but this is not one of his best.
I think Betty Ann, the Latina, was my favorite, because she'd always have the really gross ones.
Yeah, Kiki always had really good stories, too.
Which one was Kiki?
Uh,
Oh, yeah. The African, or person of color.
yeah.
With the hat.
And she's tough and she's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, this story is obviously ridiculous. I mean, it's already Afraid of the Dark. That's kind of, if you're watching it, like, that's sort of what you're accepting.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, I don't think I thought it was as ridiculous, because I was in the 90s and I was 12.
Yes, we were children.
Yeah, we were literal children. But yeah, going back, I mean, it's made for children. So, like, that's also the grain of salt you need to, sprinkle. It's like when you go back and watch it as an adult, like, yeah, no kidding, it hits different because it's not made for you.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. To me, it hits exactly the same.
It does hit exactly the same, I'll be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's probably like people who watched The Twilight Zone, the original, when they were, like, younger, and then they watch it now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, if I watch it now, it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's still fun. It's fun in the same way that it was when I was a kid.
It is. That was sort of what I missed about the new. I don't want to keep crapping on the new one, but that was sort of what I felt was lacking from the newer one, was like, it wasn't as much fun. It's
Yeah.
a lot more just like kids are going missing, but they're doing it in like the real world because like the Midnight Society itself is in danger. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't get to the Midnight Society inside the story until like many, many seasons in.
Yeah. I think it was even like the last season, right? Or close to the last. I kind of
Well,
fall off around then.
they like brought it back with like new kids
Hmm.
too. But yes, like the first run.
I know they had to
Um,
enlist Gary's help at some point. Spoilers for this show.
they did. Gary needed to help them. And his younger brother's there too.
I can never remember his
Um,
brother's name. I've been watching this show since I was a child. I have no idea.
I don't know, turd. You big jerk.
Oh yes, that's the Degrassi insult. You big dumb jerk.
Oh yeah,
You tell him.
you jerk. I'm sorry. Um, but okay, so obviously this thing is full of holes. Like for one, I'm supposed to believe that these kids the Crockers, who are from this area, don't know enough to not hike in the woods, like without a map, without any food or water really. So that's the first thing where you're like, okay, but you live here, so you must know how big the woods are.
Yeah, or have some general idea of what they're laid out like.
Right. And like, there's a whole thing about the younger one doesn't understand that he has a metal on his, like, I don't know, belt buckle, so it's screwing up with the compass. I don't know that actually would happen, but I'm not sure.
No.
I'm pretty sure it wouldn't, though, because I've definitely had a compass in Boy Scouts, and I was covered in, like, metal belts and shit.
You just wore an outfit entirely of belts.
Well, no, I mean, you have to have, like, an official Boy Scout belt, which has, like, a metal clasp.
Oh yeah, you probably have pins, right?
Yeah, well, we didn't have pens, we had patches, but
Right.
we did have, you'd have, like, maybe, like, a Swiss Army knife you keep in a little thing.
Hmm.
But whatever, let's just pretend like a compass can get fucked up by a metal belt. Maybe it can, I haven't really researched. And again, I'm trying to poke holes in a show made in 1992 for, like, children.
Incisive.
Okay, so apparently, I thought I saw where it was, like, set, but it's not set anywhere. Okay, you're Canadian, where do you think they are?
Oh, somewhere in Ontario. I mean, to me, this is all just always Ontario. Just because I know it was
Okay,
filmed there, so.
alright.
But like not
As
Toronto, because I don't think, the joke I made earlier is like I don't think there are any woods in Toronto. Like it doesn't even have like a Central Park type
I don't
thing.
think so.
Yeah.
No, that's just where you have, quote, New York or, quote, Chicago
Yes.
when you film there. So maybe you can answer this being a Canadian, because Emily was like, are there really woods that big in Canada where you could get that lost? And I was like, most likely, yes.
Oh, it's mostly that, yeah.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Like huge swaths of Canada are unpopulated and really
Yeah,
rural.
I guess that's the
remote.
difference, because, like, the U.S., even the, like, huge, huge states, you're bound to run into someone eventually.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was in California and I didn't like it. Like in Canada, if you drive for 30 minutes in any direction, from most places, you'll probably hit woods.
I mean, I will say what I like about the Southwest is we do have a lower population. So instead of like when I was in Massachusetts where you'd run into like 20 people on a trail, you might run into like 3
Yeah.
or none, which is nice. But yeah, we're also not like, I'm not like going into like the huge ass woods with like just a little canteen. I'm sorry, I keep trying to apply logic to Are You Afraid of the Dark?
But I mean, people do that. People will even just go on tours with very little preparation and then
No,
step
I
off the
did
tour
watch
and then get lost and die,
Yeah, I caught something about, I forget where. It was like volcanic rock hiking somewhere. And this guy went out with like maybe a bottle of water and that was it. And he just got lost for like 5 days.
Oh, what a nightmare.
So it does happen. But yes, okay, so they get lost in the woods. I gotta point out, which one's the younger one? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I think
Is Denny? Maybe Denny's the younger one.
I think so, because I kept thinking of Denny from The Room, and it was just
And I think Buzz sounds like an older brother name as well.
Especially
and he's sort of adult, so that's a Buzz.
We'll just assume that those are their names instead.
Okay, but so the younger one, his delivery is insane. I mean, he's just like, oh no, we're lost for every single line.
He's very chewing the scenery, just like, I am a child acting. Like,
yeah, it's very like, this is my normal voice. And he's just, they're unqualified. I don't know how you can be this unqualified to hike, but it's like he somehow falls off a cliff almost.
Like, why are they even doing this?
I don't know. I'm like, if you just want to take a nice hike, like, why any of this?
Go on a trail.
They seem to hate each other as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a sibling thing, I guess.
That's just siblings, yeah. But yeah, obviously, as I alluded to, Danny almost falls off a cliff. It's obviously this hilarious, like, happens off screen, and then he's just clearly standing on a rock that's really not that high up. Oh no! And then Buzz saves him, and then we instant cut to night. So they've apparently been lost for, I don't know, 5 to 8 hours. Who knows? They've been lost long enough it got dark.
How do they go that far into the woods without realizing they're lost? Like, why does it take them that long?
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, if you went on a hike and you were, thinking you were lost, you'd probably stop, for one. Yeah. They just keep going until it gets dark. So, it's gotta have been at least a couple hours. And this older brother was relying on his younger brother, which seemed like a mistake.
Yeah.
He almost fell off a cliff for no reason, so I wouldn't have him be the navigator.
His compass didn't help him then either.
No, it didn't. But anyway, so it gets dark, and they get lost. I believe the next person they run into is Flynn, the cab. Well, we don't know he's a cab driver yet, but they run into Flynn with his weird suicidal tendencies hat.
Yes,
he's got the baseball hat with the brim straight up.
Yep.
That was a 90s thing, I can confirm that. I don't know why it was a 90s thing, but people did it.
Yep.
I can't help but apply adult logic to this, obviously. I'm sorry. But you're two children in the woods alone at night, and a man is like, hey, and they're just instantly like, oh, hey, how's it going?
These children have no survival instincts whatsoever.
I get it, they're lost, but it's just this is how people die. This is how many people die. But, out of desperation, they go with him, and he brings them to Dr. Vink's shack.
The Vink shack.
Dr. Vink, who comes back a few times with nightmare soup, and he's somehow in one of the longer 3-part episodes as well.
He plays a film director in one of them. I think I really like the one where he's a film director.
Oh yeah, I think there is one like that.
That might be another Frank story.
It might be. But Dr. Vink with a they have weirdly quotable things from this terrible children's show.
Yeah. I love this children's show.
I do too. I mean, I love all the adult recurring characters. They're so stupid.
Yeah, something that I really
love. Sardo, no Mr. Accent on the dough.
Yes. All the adults are so unhelpful and useless. I think that really taps into a good, child's anxiety, right? That's
it does. Everyone's I mean, Sardo in particular, he's just he owns a curio magic shop, and he knows, the implication is he just has no idea what any of it is. And he's always giving these things away to children, and then they're cursed, and something terrible happens. And then they come back, what's happening? And he's like, I don't really know.
There's no possible way this shows, this shop is running a profit. What is he doing?
Well, no, he does, because, that's, part of the reason is he's, sleazy, so he'll just, he'll look at the thing and be like, $50. And they're like, okay. And he's like, really? Oh, okay. But Dr. Vink is confusing in that he's not he's not really fleshed out as much. Like Sardo, you can at least get a sense of like, it's obviously because Gary's dad or whatever owns a magic shop.
Mm-hmm. Very low estimation of his father. Gary
yeah, but whatever. Like, it's it's a character that's clearly alive, for one.
Yeah.
Dr. Vink, skipping ahead, but they explain at the end of the episode, they go back, and the shack he was in is just like rubble. It's like just a foundation covered in weeds. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean Dr. Vink is a ghost?
Dr. Vink is beyond time.
He is a scientist. He's a weird scientist. He just has a hand in a jar.
Yeah, he collects body parts to experiment on? Is that?
I think so. He's got the brain of a boar.
And Flynn's hand.
He does. Took my hand. It's just clearly his hand is like lower down in the sleeve.
It clearly is.
They didn't even bother to do like a fake stump or anything.
No. I love this show so much.
I think part of the charm, it's sort of like what I feel like you lose when you go from, say, Star Trek, the original series, to like Next Generation, is like when they had no budget, it was just inherently funnier.
Yeah.
And anything, like Batman from the 60s. It's like, I like newer Batman, but it's like, you're not beating 60s Batman because it's just ridiculous. They had no budget.
Yeah, I guess that's part of what makes camp like naturally occur in things.
Yeah, just like a lack of a budget. But I don't know, it's charming. It's silly, but it's also charming.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I loved Flynn's delivery because it turns out, okay, so Dr. Vink is like, you have to solve riddles or I won't let you use the phone to get help.
And I love I never noticed this, but so he says, like, I've been driving people here for 40 years and no one's ever solved his riddle. It's not that hard of a riddle.
No, it's not.
Like a child figured it out. I guess the implication is maybe everyone else was a child, but like, come on. It's a hole. It's whatever.
Yeah, I was just like, it's light. It's like, it's a hole to let light in. I'm like, there you go.
Yeah. But so they're with Dr. Vink and he asks them some riddles. I forget what the first one he asks is.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
It's a riddle for children.
Yeah, some riddle.
I will say it's hilarious that he has a phone. Apparently he's got a working landline in this shack in the middle of the woods. Okay.
His little Unabomber shack.
Right. So it's like, clearly there's got to be, okay, I don't want to pick this apart, but there had to have been telephone poles for a telephone to work, and then you just follow the telephone poles out of the woods.
These kids have no survival skills, though.
But I guess it's a magic phone.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Well, because the whole thing disappears. But he takes like
Ghost
gardening
phone.
shears and he's about to cut the phone. He's like, if you don't answer my riddles, you're never using the phone. It's like, whoa.
How is this a hobby you have?
Right, he just waits for children to come by to ask them riddles, and then he gets them killed if they don't answer.
Dismember people. But only if they can't answer his riddle.
But yeah, so they can't answer one of them, and Dr. Vink is a creep, so he's like, I'm gonna need a specimen like this, and he holds up a hand in a jar, and we get one of those amazing, I'm sure they did this in Goosebumps too, but the like rack zoom while the kids are just like full mouth screaming. Yes. And it's always like, it's not like a real scream. It's always like, oh,
yeah.
Like,
staple of children's horror.
And it only works with the rack zoom. You have to like zoom in. And then we get our first Dutch tilt of the entire series, which they abuse to no end.
It's magical.
Anytime anything weird is happening, you know, because the camera is at a slight angle. But yeah, okay.
It's called symbolism shot.
They have their Dutch tilt as they run out. They, Vink does tell them, like, go off to the left and there will be a cab. They ask, why would there be a cab? Understandably. He doesn't really answer. They get in this random phantom cab, which is the name of I would also add, we forgot to mention, every story is the tale of the, you know? That's like a convention they have. I don't know if in the pilot they actually have the sand yet. I just realized that.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember.
I don't think they do. But, like, you know, eventually we get the ritual of, like, someone takes, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's like some sort of sand or something. They take it out of this bag, and then they go submit it for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story, and then it's always the tale of the something. So this one is the tale of the Phantom Cab. I believe the next one is the tale of Laughing in the Dark, and then they throw the sand into the fire, and it, like, makes it a different color. It's cool. Like, I don't know, it's like crack to me. It's just so...
Have you ever used that stuff that changes your campfire color? It's kind of fun.
No.
I don't know. It's probably made of,
Does it exist? I mean, I'm sure it's just gunpowder. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something. I don't know. It's probably toxic. I've used it before and it's fun.
You just throw little bits of plastic on there.
Yeah. Make it smell really nice.
Microplastics. No. I have to mention this before I forget. They found microplastics in breast milk, so we're officially doomed.
Ah.
Yeah, like we're literally we're just made of microplastics now.
Our bones will be dust and the microplastics will remain.
Indeed. But so they get in the cab. Probably my favorite part of the episode. Other than
it's
the
so
Dr.
good.
Vink stuff. And it's like they're not very attentive children. Because he's like bone white now. And they're just like, hey, you know, they don't think anything's wrong. I'm just like, this dude is clearly dead. He's just completely like, he is dead. How do you not?
He's like rotting. He's like Giuliani melting.
But yeah, so they're just, he's like, oh yeah, you know, Dr. Vink, I didn't answer his riddle and he took my hand. And, you know, the stupid like hand snuck in the jacket sleeve. And then at one point he's like, you could say and then they have like an Exorcist style like head turn. Yeah. So his head turns around 180 degrees. He just goes, I'm sort of dead.
Yeah, he has a great delivery on that. He's like, I'm dead.
I know, it's great though. I love it. I love to hate it. And then you've got obviously Denny, this incredible actor, being like, it makes a barrel lighter. And he's like just walking through the fucking riddle.
Oh, right.
It's a hole in the barrel.
Flint's gonna crash the car if they don't answer the riddle, so the stakes have been upped.
Right. He's like, we're all gonna die. It's like, I don't know.
Even though he's already dead. What a mess.
I know it's maybe not like, it's not so bad in terms of like gore or anything, but just like someone cleared this. Yeah. Someone was like, oh yeah, that's fine for children. And it's literally just like an old dead man being like, I'm going to crash you into a tree and kill you. Unless you answer this stupid riddle. And then
he says the whole riddle. He repeats it.
He does. He says it like 2 times, I think.
Just say it.
It's a hole. And then they have this great effect where it's like clearly one shot was a cab like driving, and then the next shot is just them from the other side of the tree, just like fake falling. It works, but it's like much in Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's very silly.
Yeah.
And that's the story. And then a little epilogue. Ranger, played by a man named Ted Dillon, shows up and he's like, are you the Crocker kids? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, your parents and the whole town are worried sick. And this is where I also stopped and went, the whole town? I can't imagine it's been, more than like 8 hours? How does the whole town know?
It must be a small town, which again is
maybe
like, why do you not know the
like,
kids?
Did they get everybody together after 5 hours?
Yeah, back then, I mean, I don't want to boomerify this or anything, but like, they did. They would be like, go play outside, and you'd play outside literally all day, like a full work shift, 8 hours.
Yeah, like it'd be normal.
Yeah, nobody would be calling the cops. Getting the whole
you can't even file a missing persons unless it's been, 48 hours?
Yeah, it might be shorter for children. I hope so.
Well, but I think it's got to be at least 24
Yeah.
or something like that.
I mean,
But
certainly
like,
back in
yeah,
the 90s, it wouldn't be after 8 hours.
no, I mean, yeah, I think we were talking about this off air, but like kids just don't go outside anymore.
Yeah.
Or if they do, I'm sorry, maybe kids do, but
I hope they do.
I haven't
It's fun
seen it.
outside.
No, I mean, I see kids riding bikes, so like they go on a street.
Yeah, I see them out playing basketball sometimes.
But like, I don't know that they go, well, maybe they should have never, the thing is, maybe they should have never been going into the woods alone.
Well, yeah, there's always that.
Because we're all like, oh, I miss those days where kids would go missing very easily because they'd go by themselves into the woods.
I miss when we were in constant peril.
I mean, there are just certain things you no longer need. Like, back in the day, you'd be looking for woods porn. Like the weird stash of porno mags somebody would just leave in the woods.
I've heard that this is a thing. I never encountered it.
I have. I've seen woods porn in the wild.
Weird.
And it was as weird as you would think. You're just like, oh, it's porn.
In the woods.
In the woods. Obviously kids nowadays, they can just Google boobs and they're done. So,
Right.
But yeah, so that's the end of the story. And another convention they have is, now I'm not sure if they filmed I assume they filmed everyone at the same time, the Midnight Society, but I have no proof of this because a lot of the reaction shots are just one person.
Right.
So they'll go from one kid to the next to get their reactions.
Oh,
like
that's
in this
true.
case, do you want Frank to join? It's like, that was cool. Like a thumbs up and like,
Great
yeah.
story.
And then it cuts to someone else. But part of me wonders if it wasn't just because they did one shot with all the kids together. And then they were like, okay, now we got to do pickups because this doesn't make sense. So they just got the kids back. Also, very clearly, there's not a fire. Very clearly, they just have flashlights they're clicking on and off or something to mimic the flames and the shadows. But yeah, Frank is in, and that's the end of the episode. The end of the pilot. I believe it's like 20 minutes, I mean.
Yeah, I think something like that. Which most of the episodes are. They're around 25 minutes.
Right, except for your, like, multiple parters, like the Tale of Cutter's Treasure is, I don't know. It might have been 2 hours, but it might have been less. Where they got Charles S. Dutton to play a pirate, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
If I ever meet Charles S. Dutton, by the way, I'm not mentioning anything else. I'm just going to be like, you were in Cutter's Treasure. And he'll be like, whoa, what the fuck?
I wonder how often he gets that.
He probably gets it more than he'd want.
Yeah, probably. This is an iconic show.
Truly. And then we get the amazing end credits. Should also point out, the pilot doesn't have the frankly incredible title sequence.
Yes.
What's weird about Are You Afraid of the Dark is the title sequence is terrifying.
It's so scary.
It's like haunting and scary, and it's just like a lone swing and then like a clown puppet in an attic and then a match that lights itself, and it's like, this is some straight up X-Files shit.
Yeah, it's got this like ghostly children's chorus. Just being like, ooh.
It is. I mean, it reminds me also of, there was a band, film that was aired on Nickelodeon a little after our time in the 2000s called, Crybaby Lane. They aired it once. And okay, so this is actually an interesting talking point. We talked about how maybe this couldn't survive out of the 90s. We actually have proof that it wouldn't have. Because we had this like made for TV movie called Crybaby Lane. I believe it was one of the people that did Pete and Pete wrote it. It's very over the top. It's like a little more intense, I think, than Are You Afraid of the Dark, but not too much, but just enough. And it aired once, and the parents were so angry when they saw it that it was never aired again.
Oh no.
And I sort of understand, you got like Frank Langella as like a sleazy funeral home owner.
Yeah.
So like he'll be like telling his assistant like, oh, they paid for the pine, but put it in the cheaper box.
Right.
In this children's movie. And like the opening monologue is like, it's classic, but it's very much like there were these conjoined twins and one of them was good and one of them was evil. So the father sawed them apart, except they couldn't live without each other and they both died, and he buried the good one in like a nice cemetery, and he buried the bad one off of Crybaby Lane in a potter's field. And if you go by that road, you can still hear the cries of the bad child, and it's sort of like a possession-y kind of story.
What? This is amazing. I need to watch it.
Yeah, I can link it to you.
Yeah.
But I can understand, because there's a lot of, the whole thing is like when the bad child gets into these kids, they like start acting up and like smashing mailboxes and stuff.
Right.
And like it gets progressively worse. Like this one older brother like puts his younger brother in a pen with a bull in his underwear.
What?
And it's like, oh, that could straight up kill him. I can sort of see why parents were like, I don't love this. So it goes a little bit harder than Are You Afraid of the Dark, but like not so much harder. But since it was in the 2000s and it was like post 9/11, I think, yeah, parents at that point were just like, nah, no way. And they never aired it again. They might have aired it since, but like, you know, for a while they would not air it again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if you look at Are You Afraid of the Dark's whole trajectory, like, there's definitely episodes that go harder than others. Some are kind of goofy.
I will say the first season, I think the first couple episodes, there's stuff that goes way, like Laughing in the Dark still creeps me out.
Yeah.
Because there's this element of like home invasion that I don't know was in any of the other episodes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, it's like a clown ghost. That's fine. That's normal children's stuff. But you're getting like, you know, like, he's calling on the phone and antagonizing it. It's like serial killer stuff.
Yeah, man.
You're getting into like, the call is coming from inside the house type stuff. And obviously as an adult going back and watching it, it's silly because it's like, you know, there's cigars in the pudding or whatever, but
it's creepy
it's
though.
It's effective. I don't know why it's so effective.
I always found the Old Man Corcoran episode really dark.
Which one was that?
It's the one with the kids in the graveyard and they want to play hide and seek with the new kids.
Oh yeah, that one's, and it's like the prom queen or something.
No, that's a different one. That's another one of my favorites.
That is a different one.
But yeah, like they keep trying to get them to go in the grave, and then it turns out that the kids are ghosts. So it's like these ghost children were trying to kill these living children.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that. That's what I love about Are You Afraid of the Dark, is they clearly just had no oversight.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's horror. What do you want?
Also, the fact that like so many actors were just randomly on it. Like Ryan Gosling, this was the first thing he was in, I think.
Oh, really?
Yep, in the episode with Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh, yeah, I love that episode.
And like the haunted radio station or whatever.
Yeah.
That's another one that goes really hard. It's like a kid wanders into a radio station and he's not dead, but he's like, no, you're dead, so you're going to heaven or hell or whatever because you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's the whole episode, is him being like, I'm not dead. And Gilbert Gottfried being like, yes, you are.
And he sees a guy straight up get dragged, kicking and screaming into hell. So, I mean,
yeah,
it goes there, man.
It does. But yeah, I think with Are You Afraid of the Dark, I'm more excited to get to the later episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, it's weirdly, I don't know if I'd describe it as bad, but it's not good. But it's just like, it's good because it's so bad. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of it that are just...
Like, to say outright it's good is a lie. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, like, it has really good elements to it, like, genuinely good, but it also has this, like, element of being super 90s and super Canadian and pretty low production values.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, it ends up making it funny. Also,
it does. I mean, there are still episodes though, like the ghost in the pool. I don't know who did the makeup on that, but it's so, I don't know. That screwed me up on pools. That and between that one and Jaws, I was like, I don't like pools.
Yeah.
For a while.
I get it.
Oh man, yeah, Laughing in the Dark messed me up because we had just moved from like a busier town where I was on like a main street to Sudbury, Massachusetts, which was like suddenly it was just crickets. And then you got this story about like home invasion by like a ghost clown. And I was just like, no, I don't like this.
No, that's terrifying.
It was definitely like months. I was like running up into my room to lock the door and stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that they, like, the jumping off point in a lot of these episodes is that the kids have moved somewhere. That's kind of the inciting incident, and then...
Yeah, there is a lot of that. It's either like they go on a vacation or they've moved somewhere. There's one weird thing I noticed. There's a lot of single parents.
Yes.
Like a ton. And for some reason, there's not a lot of dads.
Yeah, it's mostly just single mothers, and they're just like, oh, you have to support me at this difficult time. Please try to get
And
along
I don't
with
know
your
if that's
brother or
DJ
sister.
McHale or what, but maybe it's just, maybe it's more of like a Disney thing. It's like, I don't know. They don't have both parents. They're more susceptible.
Maybe they just need some sort of explanation why a parent is distracted, or why more people aren't noticing the weird shit happening in these kids' lives.
Okay, so here's the weirdest thing. DJ McHale, born 1956 in Connecticut, USA.
Huh.
So it's like, it is sort of a American-Canadian, just by nature of the fact the creator is American.
Yeah.
But you would not know it because the kids are all playing hockey.
Yeah. They all have really hardcore Ontario accents. Well, in this episode, Buzz has a really hardcore Ontario accent.
See, that's the thing. When I was 12, I didn't know to look for it.
Yeah. And I was like, that's not plausible. But then I was like, actually, my sister has a pretty intense Cape Breton accent even still, and I don't have one because I worked to make sure I didn't get one.
That's fair.
So I was like, yeah, that happens. But it's still funny.
It is truly still funny. I'm looking what else DJ McHale did. He did something called Flight 29 Down. I'm like, what is
I've never heard of it.
Story of 7 kids lost on a deserted island in the Pacific Ocean. This sounds like Lost, but with children. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's probably terrible, but I might have to
if it turns out they're in purgatory, that's pretty dark.
I wouldn't put it past DJ McHale.
We were just saying how dark Are You Afraid of the Dark gets.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is almost a 40-minute episode, so this is how much I love Are You Afraid of the Dark, though. Like, we'll have fun doing Tales from the Dark Side, but clearly neither of us has like a connection to that show, other than like, oh, look, George Romero, or, kind of peripheral stuff.
General.
But like, we both watched Are You Afraid of the Dark as a child. Sometimes I honestly think the dividing line, especially for horror writers, is, it's like a certain age. It's like people that were kids when Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark were popular, and people that weren't. Because I feel like there's a very specific sort of like self-awareness and like tongue-in-cheekness that comes with like having grown up with Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've never noticed it, but now I might, that you've pointed it out.
You might look for it now, yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's just me spitballing. And, I did write a book that's more or less like a Goosebumps book for adults.
It really is. So, listeners, if you're into that sort of thing, you should read Sean's book.
Goddamn Zombie Chainsaw Murderer. And if it was made as a Goosebumps book, I suppose it would be called like, gosh darn, Zombie
with a chainsaw.
Next Door. With a chainsaw.
Maybe even that would be.
And I would win the R.L. Stine Award.
I love R.L. Stine. Oh,
he's great. He randomly does appearances as himself and stuff. Like in the show Search Party, he's in a dream sequence as himself.
That's amazing.
And they go across the table, and then he's just like, "I'm R.L. Stine, writer of children's scary stories." Yeah, he had annoyed me because he did some article however many years back about how Halloween should just be for children. And I'm like, wow, dude, you've made your whole career about being an adult into Halloween. Yeah. But, since then I've been like, okay, like whatever. So
I think it's well accepted at this point that there's child Halloween and adult Halloween.
I would say, if anything, the thing that annoys me now is, like, I don't feel like, it's probably just on the internet, but, like, I don't feel like there's stuff, like, targeted to kids that's, like, scary.
Yeah. That's something I was thinking about in preparation for this episode is like, I mean, I don't have children, so I don't know if maybe I'm just out of touch, but like,
Well, apparently what they do is they'll just go on YouTube and, like, online and stuff, and that's why there was, like, Slender Man was getting so huge,
right.
and now you got, like, Siren Head on TikTok or whatever. So I think kids get it out of their system that way, and Emily and I were talking about this. I think the reason is, like, now the parents are so, like, helicopter parents that, like, anything that would be official and on TV, they would be like, no, we can't have that. Mm-hmm. But they can't really police the internet as much.
That's true. And I mean, I guess there's the Fear Street adaptation, but even then that's still, like, adapting horror for children from the 90s, and that's, like, also teenagers, but I mean, I was a kid reading this book.
Yeah. I wanted to like that. I don't know. I watched the first one. I just couldn't get into it. But I never read the series either. Yeah. So.
Well, it plays a little fast and loose with the series, but yeah, I don't know. I guess the kids have Stranger Things. They seem to be really into, but that's also like...
Yeah, that's true. They got, like, Stranger Things, but, like, I feel like nowadays the thing is they try to make everything for adults and children. So you won't just get, like, an Are You Afraid of the Dark that's just like, we don't care about adults. This is for children.
And I think, like, I know when I was reading about Are You Afraid of the Dark, they said that submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society is a nod to Twilight Zone. And it's like, it does kind of feel like a horror-based Twilight Zone for kids.
Yeah, it does. It feels like that.
I don't think that exists anywhere else, and I think that's why, like, it holds up so well. I don't know if kids these days would be into it, but maybe they would.
I think they would say it was cringe. I don't even know if cringe is a thing anymore. I'm old.
Yeah.
But they would be like, no cat. Like, no, I don't know. On God, for real, this is...
You think they would think it's cringe?
Basic?
I don't know. I mean, they're back to dressing like that, so maybe they'd like it.
They might say it was based. I still don't know how to use base. But maybe, because, like, it does do its own thing. They would say it's vibes.
Will you stop?
Sorry. I do love that all the kids now wear, like, Jinkos again. I'm like, oh my God. Not like officially but you know what I mean? They have the huge pants again.
Yeah. And the bandanas in the hair. I'm like, oh no. I was hoping those wouldn't come back.
No. No more David Foster Wallaces.
I forgot I've got on this rant before. Yes. David Foster Wallace core.
Ugh. But anyway, yes.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
So now it's almost at an hour.
Yep.
So,
to leave this in.
Yeah, in terms of how often we're going to do this, listeners, I don't know. I'm assuming we're still going to be doing Dark Side Citizens more. Just because I'd like to at least get through the first season of Tales from the Dark Side before we're sort of like focusing on something else as much. Mm-hmm. But I'd definitely love to talk about more of Are You... Like, I'd cover the whole series, but between Tales from the Dark Side and Are You Afraid of the Dark, we could easily die before getting done.
Yeah.
With, like, all of them.
Both long-running series.
Yeah, I think Are You Afraid of the Dark is, like... Well, it's 90 episodes, so... Let me look it up. But I think it's about 7 seasons.
Yeah. And isn't Tales from the Dark Side similar, or is it, like, 5 seasons?
It's similar. I think Tales... Okay, yeah. Are You Afraid of the Dark is 7 seasons from 1990 to 2000, which isn't actually correct because it says Phantom Cab was 92.
Yeah.
But, so that's 7 seasons, and then Tales from the Dark Side, I want to say is like 5, but I'm not sure. Could be less.
Yeah, that's a lot of TV,
But,
though.
this was old school television where you get at least 20 episodes per season. Yeah. So... takes a little longer. But anyway, yeah, so this is under the Celluloid Citizens banner. If you're listening to this, you are probably aware of that because it's either under the YouTube for Celluloid Citizens or it's under Celluloid Citizens proper. I think of it as a sideshow. So we've got the Dark Side Citizens sideshow. We've up to about 8 episodes, I think, on that. Wow. And this is obviously the first episode of Are You Afraid of the Citizens? Because I think that's the best one I can come up with. And recently we covered Exorcist 3, Tiffany and I, and we're going to be covering Halloween 3 pretty soon. So that'll probably be for the month of October. But anyway, thanks for coming on, Tiffany.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, stay tuned. That was lame, but I'm keeping it. Okay, we're done.
I was like, what's it? Are you afraid of the dark ending?
I was trying to, I'm like, there's no...
They don't have a sign-off.
It's just the bucket. How do you...
Picture me dumping water on the fire.
Right, I'm going to dump a bucket of water on this children's fire.
Yeah.
That's another thing, like, they always got like a fire going, and I'm like, this is just kids.
Yeah, well, that's also...
It's kids in the woods at midnight doing
another
fires.
thing the Noon Society didn't have was a fire, so it really was just friends sitting in the woods telling ghost stories, which was still pretty fun.
That's super dangerous. I mean, they did this like 90 times.